Susie from BerChain, and just wanted to give you a quick intro about BerChain and what we do. BerChain is a member-led non-profit organization and association based in Berlin. We connect the Berlin blockchain ecosystem, and we are co-hosting and co-organizing this event with Berlin Partner for Business and Technology. And here there's Jakob with me. And also, like, this event is supported and made possible as well with the help of Berlin Partner for Business and Technology, and the ICT Media Cluster, and BTC-ECHO, and Betahaus, who kindly is hosting us today, and VRBB. So just wanted to as well quickly give you an overview about the agenda today. We're going to talk about decentralization in the Metaverse, and if we can see the agenda is already here. So today we are going to start like in 5 minutes actually with a keynote from Sven, co-founder and editor-in-chief of BTC-ECHO. We're going to have a coffee break, and then we will have the first panel discussion around decentralization in the Metaverse. As the speakers we have, as a panelist, we have Deussen from License Rocks, and Deussen, Zoe Macbeth from Fala Network, and Alexander Drin from Block Rocket, and is going to be moderated by John Marco Hammond from Style Protocol. We have another coffee break, and then there's going to be a second panel around XR NFTs opportunities in the decentralized Metaverse. Panel with Franziska from Yoona.ai, Frank Hahn from Rave, Kerstin Gold, Simon Graff from ForReal, and moderated by Laura Hirvi from VRBB. We will have another coffee break, so please help yourself. And at the end, please stay for the demo session from Studio Deussen. Thank you for being here today. And so let's dive into the content. I will hand on the mic to Jakob. Please welcome Jakob Spears from Berlin Partner on stage.
Hello, I just want to say a couple of words to my person and to Berlin Partner, but first of all, it's a really hot day today. If you're thirsty, might be, you can help yourself with the fridge, or also in the kitchen you can just take water from the water spender. And we have also coffee here on there. Yes, my person, I'm the innovation manager of the innovation fields blockchain and IT security at Berlin Partner. Berlin Partner is the economic development agency of the city of Berlin. So if you have any questions with how we can support your company here in Berlin, or if you want to start a company here in Berlin, we can help you with that. We have several services for you, like finding locations, finding partners, finding cooperations between universities and also companies. So for all the questions, also internationalization, when you want to reach out to other markets in the European market or also beyond that, we can help you with that. So I'm here, just say hello, and we figure out a way and get connected, and we see how we can help you. So, but now I'm really pleased that I would like to warm welcome Sven Wagenknecht on the stage. Please, cheer him up that he come here.
So thank you, Jakob. And now I'm looking forward to talk about the Metaverse beyond the hype. And therefore we have to look on the perception of this difficult and collective term, because so many things are connected to this term. Some are crypto related, like NFTs for example, and others are not, like the virtual reality. And most people think about the Metaverse when it comes to virtual reality. So when we read some articles in the news, for example, you will see an image like this. And of course, this is not so correct, because the Metaverse you can enter via different devices, even through your smartphone, is it possible, or through your laptop? So this is not completely correct, this kind of perception. Another thing is that there are, in my opinion, some browser games out there who have some NFTs, and they also claim to be a metaverse. I think that's also a little bit too much, maybe. So we can see there's a lot of hype and marketing included in this collective term, metaverse. And yeah, to look on the prices is always a good indicator to see how hypes are going forward. And of course, you can see here a very nice spike in autumn last year, where everything started with the hype, and then we saw some all-time highs in November, December, and then of course with the bear market, the prices came down significantly, like 80% or more distance to their all-time high, and now the prices are at the same level like they were before the hype. So this is a very harsh correction, and also other cryptocurrency metaverse blockchain projects have the same pattern like listed here. I mean, Sandbox and Decentralized are the most famous ones, of course, you look to, but there are also other projects with cryptocurrencies, and yeah, it's a very, very hard time for them. But another thing I really like to focus on is not only the prices, but also the Google Trends. So in Google Trends you can see how many people search for a specific term. And this is something which makes me more optimistic, I would say. Of course, we see also this hype starting in October, see a longer period of several months, and of course it came down with the bear market, but the interest in the metaverse is still high. It's not bad. So this is a proof for me, an example that the metaverse is here to stay, that the people want to get to know more about the metaverse, and so the prices are maybe a little bit more negative than the real interest is. And maybe you ask, what's happened there in October? I think most of you will know what happened there, because there's one person we all know. It's our charming CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, who announced that Facebook will rename, or will have a new name, Meta, and that the metaverse is becoming the #1 priority of this company, that billions of US dollars will flow into this sector, that thousands of jobs will be created for the metaverse. And I like this statement because it's a very logical statement for me. I think I would read it now. Today we are seen as a social media company, but in our DNA we are a company that builds technology to connect people, and the metaverse is the next frontier, just like social networking was when we got started. So I think that's pretty clear why he's doing this, why he's going such a big risk, because many people don't like his idea. Even within the company, they are very critical about the metaverse because it's so far away for them. But if you look at the next slide, we see that there are many opportunities, of course, because half of the world population uses services from Meta. So 3.6 billion people. And this is, of course, massive if you achieve that these users go to the next big thing, the metaverse. That's very important if you want to hold your market position as #1 platform. And I think it's even more for Meta. It's not about the advertising thing, because right now Meta is making the money with ads. But the metaverse is something which offers so many more opportunities, new business cases. Like we will see in the future, I think, a new e-commerce infrastructure where you have shops and buying your new sneakers, for example. We have new business opportunities that you don't use Google Meets, for example, or Microsoft Teams, but you meet in the metaverse of Facebook. And of course, there are other social activities like meeting friends, dating, or you can have events and conferences like we have here today, maybe in the future in the metaverse. So there are many new things which can have an attractive impact on the company valuation. But I think the most important thing, it's my personal opinion, you don't have to share this, but my opinion is that Meta still wants to become the biggest financial institution in the world, bigger than Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan together. Because if they achieve to have a banking infrastructure with 3.6 billion customers. So that's attractive, and they tried it before. We all know Libra and Diem, the stable coins which have failed. But still, I think that this and the Metaverse is an opportunity to bring the people in your own financial infrastructure. I'm not talking only about the NFTs things, it's so much more. And yeah, it's already getting started right now, I think. And therefore, I think the Novi wallet is super important. I mean, right now it's just a wallet where you can send some stable coins, Paxos stable coins, US dollar stable coins from A to B without any fees. It's open for the people in the US and Guatemala. And I think that this is already a nice use case they have to get the people used to this app. But in the future, there will be so much more. And it's already official that NFTs can be also stored in the Novi wallet. And so on the left and the right, you can see some early stage environments of the Metaverse from Facebook, from Meta. So it works like for fun activities, and you have workrooms, so as a substitute maybe for Google Meets and so on. And I think that these environments in the future will be connected to the Novi wallet. And it's not about only cryptocurrencies and NFTs. In the future, I think the wallet will be a store of everything you got, like our identity, your driver license, your memberships. Everything will be stored in your wallet. And if Meta with Novi is the infrastructure provider, this is a completely new dimension. This is completely crazy what's possible then. Yeah, I think that in the very future, the users can become citizens. It's a new concept of state maybe, because the things we have in the Metaverse can be compared to a digital economy. Like, for example, you have your GDP, where you have an aggregation or accumulation of all services and goods within an economy which are produced in 1 year. So maybe in the future we'll have a similar approach to the Metaverse, that there's also GDP. But of course, with the virtual real estates you have there and all transactions that are happening, that we talk about a Metaverse GDP. And this is crazy because there are new concepts of states that are being created now, not next year, not 2 years, but next 5, 10, 15 years. And this brings me to the idea of that we can, that there's some similarities maybe with the Saudi Arabian nomads in Dubai, for example, when they recognized decades ago that they are sitting on a very valuable field, on oil fields, which can create so much wealth, which can create the middle of nowhere in the desert, cities like that, wealth, which is significantly. And I think we are just at this point that we are standing in the desert, it's super chaotic, nothing is really built. But in the future, there are new cities in the Metaverse with this impact on everything. So, and the question now, of course, is who will win the race? I'm really afraid of it, because if I think that Meta, which is already very powerful, which sometimes maybe abuses this power, and that these big companies, the corporate-driven Metaverse system, that they will win, who I'm afraid of. So it's a competition between the community-driven ones, the decentralized versions, the blockchain versions, which are open, where the data is fairly distributed, or where everyone has his own control about his privacy, or the corporate one, the Silicon Valley one, which in my opinion are close to a dystopia. So the question will be, I think, where we want to spend time, which Metaverse we want to use really, and there will be a lot of wealth created. This will be the most important question for me. Next. Right now, I'm not so happy with the decentralized versions, honestly, because this is a screenshot of Sandbox, for example, and in my opinion, it's super boring. We tested it for 10 minutes in our editorial office to write an article about it, and after 10 minutes I was so bored because I think it looks horrible, the gameplay is not good. There are exclusive areas only for the rich, which is against the blockchain narrative for me. There are so many advertisement campaigns from big companies, like you can think that there are all the marketing interns from IKEA, Kaufland and other big brands are building some things there for marketing reasons. And of course, you have many people who try to sell their NFTs there. It's like an NFT bazaar. And this is, for me, not a healthy community. It's not a place I want to spend time. So many things have to change. So there's a lot of work we have to do, but there's no alternative for me, because I don't want to live in a world where where one company or even one person can have such a big power. So it's up to us to work really, really hard on the decentralized, fair Metaverse version. So yeah, let's do this together, and then I think we can have a nice future in the Metaverse. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot to Sven Wagenknecht from BTC-ECHO. What we do right now is having a short coffee break to prepare the first panel. So yeah, help yourself with a coffee, and we see each other here again at 11.
Hello. Sorry to interrupt the coffee break, but we are actually starting now with the first panel, which is about decentralization in the Metaverse. And we will have on stage Deussen from License Rock, Deussen, Zoe Metcalf from Fala Network, Alexander Dean from Block Rocket, and moderated by Gianmarco Hamburg from Style Protocol. So please welcome on stage our panelists and moderators for this session, Decentralization of the Metaverse. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, I'm Gianmarco Hammond. I'm the creative director at Style Protocol. Welcome to Decentralization in the Metaverse. I'll do a quick intro of myself, and then each of our panelists can do an introduction of themselves as well. At Style Protocol, we enable cross-metaverse interoperability, and we bridge any 2D asset, whether it's a photo or anything, a JPEG or an NFT, into the Metaverse as a 3D skin, wearable, avatar, weapon, accessory, pet, anything. And this enables cross-metaverse interoperability, bridges assets, and gives the initial creator more control over their creation through sub-licensing the NFT and giving them royalties off the entire life cycle of the NFT. And it's all about empowering the creator economy, up-and-coming creators, and I think if we go just starting from my left down to my right, so starting with Zoe, if you could give us a little explanation about what you do and your role, and yeah.
Thank you. Hello everyone, I'm Zoe. I lead growth for Europe and North America for Fala Network. Fala Network provides a decentralized computation cloud. We are a parachain on Kusama as well as Polkadot, so very active in these ecosystems. And what's special about our cloud is that anyone can use it, anyone can participate, anyone can provide a service to it. But I think we can dive deeper into what's special about us in the panel discussion. Thank you. Nice to be here. I don't know if this is on, by the way. Is this on? Yes. Yeah. Okay, good.
Hello everyone, my name is Deussen. I'm a long-time blockchain enthusiast. I got introduced to Bitcoin in 2013 and then went down the rabbit hole. The past years I've been working for several protocols. I'm protocol agnostic, but the past years I've been working for proof of work, lately for our proof of stake network, setting up a local chapter here for the Tezos blockchain, and now I'm working as an independent advisor and consultant in Web3/blockchain. Happy to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexandra, investment manager at BlockRocket. We are a young venture capital firm that invests in early stage blockchain startup globally. So if you are a blockchain startup looking for funding, you can reach out to me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dal Zulfikar. I'm one of the founders of License Rux, and we believe that every creator in the world can monetize their IP by creating NFTs, and for that we created, like, on the one hand also a protocol, like how we can license different IP, but on the other hand we also have like an NFT white label solution that anyone can use, and you don't have to look for these rare developers out there.
So I think that will lead me on to my first question, which will be for you, Daud. So going back to what you said about NFTs, and they don't need to be specifically so rare, do you see NFTs as a gateway for the metaverse? And if so, if you could give like a one-sentence definition of what you believe the metaverse to be.
One sentence you want me to
As simple as possible.
Yeah, well, I see it as an emerging virtual new reality where we have NFTs as building blocks for proving ownership, and cryptocurrencies as coming up with new business models on like micro service levels and micro payment options bringing along that you would need for having, I'm still with that one sentence by the way, that we would need for just having, or creating a nice sustainable business models out of it. At least 3 commas, I would say.
And so what role or what kind of impact will NFTs have in like, the development of the metaverse and in the development, as you said, they're the building blocks for it. So I know with License Rocks you do licensing with NFTs, and does that relate to the whole building block aspect of it, or is that something completely different?
No, if I think about a brand, for instance, going into the metaverse, and if you then enter that virtual room, for instance, or you use any other immersive technology, you can prove that the creator, the brand itself, really published that virtual item that you could purchase, but maybe you can also lend it, or maybe you can also get it for free, but you have the option to always add ownership properties based on the situation, which I find is pretty sexy.
I couldn't agree more. And so moving on, I'm sure we'll come back and forth between each panelist. Zoe, for example, and how would one like provide security to preserve privacy within the metaverse? And would this also be directly through the NFTs, or would that be through the infrastructure within it?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it through several levels. We have Firewall network provided definitely through the blockchain itself, right? What we do, I mean, I said already, like decentralized computation cloud. What's special about our chain is that we actually separate the consensus from the computation. So we have our blockchain where we use, where we manage all the transaction actually, but we have the serverless cloud. So we don't own any servers that actually provide the computation to the cloud, but anyone that follows requirements specifically has a trusted execution environment, can join the cloud and provide computation power to the cloud. So we use, as I said, TEs, trusted execution environments, which is a specific requirement for the hardware, and with this we can execute all the transactions in a secure enclave. So if you host the Metaverse on our cloud service, you have this privacy preserving aspect actually integrated in our service that we provide.
Cool, thank you. And so with a cloud server, for example, do you think if most metaverse companies or different metaverse companies all had a cloud server, that would enable interoperability more than the current infrastructure that there is now?
Yes, I mean, if you look at what we are building right now, specifically in the blockchain Web3 world, right, everything should be open source, specifically the Metaverse code. And also to your question, what is the Metaverse? For me, I mean, there are a lot of different definitions, as you just tried to put it out. I think for me it's just more important that people understand what the infrastructure of the Metaverse is, and it should follow actually three requirements. So first of all, who owns the content that is built, right? Specifically the owner, like the people that are building the land and they're building the content should be able to own it also through NFTs. The resource, the code should be open source, right? That's what we're building. And the infrastructure should be stable and serverless, so it should be not owned by any company. You heard the conversation from Sven about Meta, right? What's wrong about the Metaverse is that they own all the servers, right? At one point they can shut down the whole Metaverse. So in my opinion, this is not a real Metaverse. The Metaverse is the Metaverse that's built by the community, owned by the community, and can be also continued by them. So in that case, since we are building open source, in the Web2 space, there's still a lot of people that use Web2 services, such as centralized cloud services, GCP, AWS, and so on. That's actually what we want to replace. We want to give the people that are building dApps, that are building metaverses, the opportunity to build it fully decentralized and then use our cloud service. So, yes.
Thank you. And that leads me on to one of my more general questions, which Jantine, I can ask you, for example. So, talking about decentralization, some people believe in pure decentralization of every single asset and complete transparency. And do you believe this is the way to achieve full transparency in this industry and to achieve like the actual success and the dream of the metaverse, or do you think that centralized companies like Meta will be at the forefront of these worlds?
Well, I think what Zoe said is actually very important because going back to the definition of the metaverse, maybe in one sentence I would oversimplify it and just say, let's say the digital world would be the metaverse, because what it actually really contains, I think, is every digital interaction that we have. And you can also actually see that now our life, our offline life, is actually more and more intertwined with our digital life. And if I now go out on the street, I can just walk around and I can just be who I am. But if we will have our digital world based around centralized worlds, actually then there is not a permissionless system. It actually means that someone actually controls where I can be, how I can be, who I am, and maybe I cannot even know myself who I am, which is of course very scary. So what I think what is very important for the metaverse is that we do have this like public infrastructure, so this blockchain technology that like what Zoe also said, that consists of this open source development that has a permissionless structure, so that actually everyone in this world is able to make use of the public infrastructure of the metaverse. And then coming back to your question, like who is going to win this, or I don't see it something like that. I do believe the same as in this world, if I now go to a private store, of course the rules are different than when I'm on the street, or if I'm going to a birthday party of someone. So yeah, maybe I want to go to the birthday party of Mark Zuckerberg, right? That can be. And then yeah, I will accept his conditions. But if I walk on the street of the metaverse, I don't want that. So I think that's the difference.
I love that definition, for example, and it's such an interesting way to look at it about the more decentralized it gets, the more kind of self-expressive an individual one can be within these worlds. And I think, like, do you believe that like one's crypto wallet or personal ID will be someone's alter ego or someone's new pseudonym, and they can act whoever they want to be based on their crypto ID in these different worlds?
Yeah, I think that's also a good question, because also I think what we should realize is that the technology is not there yet. We're really building, and the wallet, like being a signing device on the blockchain, I do not think it's the best way of identifying a person at the moment. It is maybe the way we now sign, so we now make sure that we are interacting. However, I do believe that in the field of self-sovereign identity, like to control and own your own data, a lot of projects are existing there that are actually really making this possible for you to own and control your identity. I do not think it will be through wallets necessarily, but that it's important and that we have to be aware that we have to use a system like that and not a system owned by any other company that is opaque. That's for sure.
Cool. And so moving on to Alexandra. So if we go back to the small topic of NFTs, so what are specific, being working at BlockRocket, we'll start off with the basics. So what are the certain requirements necessarily for investing in an NFT company or a company that's trying to move into the metaverse? Are there certain criteria that they need to meet, or are you looking at companies that kind of stray away from the criteria and are completely different?
So we invest in early stage startups. So I mean NFT or Metaverse startup, they're still like an early stage startup for us. And I think what matters the most is the team. Like what is the idea behind the business model and will it work long term? Because so we see all over the world, they just have different investment strategies. Some people, they like to participate in get with scheme money, and I would is to say that Axie Infinity, in my point of view, would be something that's not sustainable long term just because people don't enjoy playing it. So even if you have those NFT, I'm just not sure how long it sustain. For us, for a blockchain or NFT metaverse startup to sustain in the first place, is that it needs to have something that can stick in the long term, that people generally enjoy interacting or using that NFT. Right? So the use cases need to make sense. And the founders must be someone that we trust in terms of personality. Like, are they an honest-driven people who want to do good for the community, or they just want to get rich? So what kind of founders are they? So that really matters. And so recently, for example, we invest in a gaming startup called Elite Games, and the founder has been the CEO of Gameforge, one of the most popular gaming companies in Germany for 20 years. So we build a game that people generally like to play. So that is for me a very strong signal of that business model will work. And then they just integrate the NFT as in like it's quite natural to have an NFT because in the gaming community in the past, if you play like racing games or like you need some kind of like weapons or the arms, the cars, and that has been out there in the market, but it has been difficult for you to resell it as a seller. So now with NFT, it's just so much easier because you have token and you have NFT, it's easy to transfer. And that's also why I really like Style Protocol, for example, in my opinion, because you have to connect different metaverses. So if I have an identity on a metaverse, I don't have to keep buying stuff, right? I just need to buy one item and just tailor it and just to go to different metaverses. So it makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you for your answer as well. It's the two words that keep coming back to me when talking about NFTs are utility and well, the main word is utility. And I like what you said there about Axie Infinity not necessarily being a game where people want to play, because the use case of the NFTs don't really match up. And are there any other play-to-earn games that you think are kind of emerging that have more NFT use case, that are more fun to play and that are kind of getting a wider response? I know Axie Infinity has taken a bit of a drop recently, and yeah, do you see any other play-to-earn games coming through?
Yeah, so like I say, we're actually looking increasingly more into gaming companies, because gaming companies are part of the Metaverse, right? They're building the Metaverse. So the one that I just talked about, Elite Games, that we recently closed investment in, is the one that I think people generally love to play just because the founder has 20 years already in the gaming industry, the traditional one. So he builds games that people love to play. And then if I see other use cases, I'll let you know. But
yeah, please. Zoe, so could you tell us a bit more about Farlow World, for example? I think this, talking about gaming, runs on pretty smoothly. So from what I understand, it's just a brief understanding, it's a gamification layer for the Farlow community.
Yeah, that's correct. So Farlow World is actually our first use case, as you just said, for the Farlow community built on our own cloud Farlow network. Called Farlow World, and you just asked about play to earn. We actually provide play to build. So we encourage people to build their own metaverse and to build and use their avatars in their own world. So Farlow World just launched this week. We actually have an official demo this afternoon if you guys are interested. Come to speak to me later on. And what we actually do with Farlow World, we provide, it's actually the first use case integrating soulbound NFTs that Vitalik talked about. So you can create an avatar based on your on-chain as well as off-chain identity, which means like your Twitter account, your GitHub contribution, as well as all your staking contribution on the Farlow network. And by this, we then create like a shell NFT for you, and you get like a different ranking based on your activity. And this ranking you can then use in Farlow World in the game that we are still developing. But talking about interoperability, this is an SDK that we are building, so all this whole gamification of the minting process of the own NFT is also being able to be used in other metaverses then.
That's so cool, and I've heard play to earn, play to wear, and that's one of the first times I've heard play to build. And with the play to build ecosystem, is that encourage people to build within the Fala world or to go out and start something on their own as well?
Both, yeah, on their own as well. As I just said, we're building an SDK, so that's like modular and everyone can use it in the end. I talk about the Polkadot ecosystem. So our network is built on Substrate, on the Substrate framework. This SDK that we are building should be a substrate for metaverses. And we are partnering with Remark, one of the biggest NFT developers and marketplace in the Polkadot ecosystem. So we are using their NFT 2.0 mechanism that makes it also able to actually move the NFTs or all the NFTs that we are using in Fala world also to different worlds as well.
Wow.
And we are talking with that protocol how to integrate you guys as well.
Yeah, but I mean we can help with that for sure. And Daud, for example. So what kind of so we talked a lot about NFTs and ownership and the finance side of it and security as well, and like so with play to build or with these different ecosystems, do you believe that the ownership, just the ownership itself in the metaverse will be how will ownership look like in the metaverse?
Well, as I stated in the beginning, I think it will depend on the situation you're in. So imagine you're moving somewhere in a virtual reality and you're trying to take something, then maybe that's fine for the owner, but maybe it's not. And then there will be probably some kind of information layer depending on the situation that you're in that tells you what kind of ownership is behind that. Because if you see an item, maybe you like that item, you want to see who created it. That's another ownership information. Then someone who wants to buy maybe a fashion item for a special event and wants to see if anyone else already purchased that fashion item or wore it actually on a similar event or something like that. So it's a lot of different information that you can put in there, and depending on the situation, you need different information layers considering the ownership depending on the situation. That would be the ideal situation.
And are these different layers, would they be programmed within the smart contract of the NFT, or would this be built up through the blockchain or the company itself?
It always depends on the use case. I would never ever say you have to do everything decentralized. And I believe also in something like progressive decentralization, because what we are building right now is something new. And if you think about startups, if they are building something new, they always pivot. Yeah, and if you do everything in the beginning totally decentralized and put all the rules that you can't change them in a way and don't have like a nice governance system to it, then it gets complicated. And we tend in that space to make everything super complicated. Yeah, and I think just starting somewhere and taking that decentralized part and then adding on top of it and having the goal to be super decentralized with the right market product market fit makes way more sense for a lot of startups than just to say, oh, tomorrow I'm decentralized with that idea.
Well said, and I think one of the biggest challenges with this industry on the whole is education, and it's very, very complex at the moment. So that enables, that makes it harder for mass awareness and mass adoption. Jantina, for example, would you be able to explain what like the fundamentals of a smart contract are, the different use cases for a smart contract are within the metaverse?
Yeah, I think if you're talking about smart contracts, I mean, the analogy that I didn't come up with, I think it's Nick Szabo that coined actually the term smart contracts, is that they implement a business logic like a vending machine, right? Like if you are wanting to get a soda, you have to, like a certain soda, you have to maybe press certain buttons, you have to put in the amount of money, and then you get what you want. And these are like hard-coded rules that everyone permissionless can actually just access. And I think what is very interesting, if you are then building these smart contracts and unleash them, they are there hard-coded. And what Daud was saying, we actually often need to pivot still. So what do you do if you want to pivot and the smart contract is out there? I think one thing that is very interesting is that you can actually as well still pivot smart contracts if you make maybe an admin function for a DAO, like saying that you can still actually upgrade the smart contract in certain ways or change the fee structure or something like that, which can be decided not by a central administrator but actually by a group of people. And then, yeah, who is this group of people? Also the same like DAOs. I think we always need to be careful by not starting with complete decentralization, like, oh, okay, here you have your metaverse and please decide upon everything. I think there will be total panic. But nice experiment maybe as well. But it's maybe also not a bad idea to maybe start maybe with the creators that can decide upon things. I think what is very important here is that it's very transparent. So it's not all about complete decentralization from the beginning, like Dawood is saying, but transparency, open source, the whole fact that you can see what's happening actually around this decision making, I think that is the key. And then towards the decentralization, of course, in a way that it makes sense. So I completely agree with that as well.
Nice, thank you. And so, obviously with a DAO, it's a decentralized autonomous organization, they're community-led and community-driven, and if you are part of DAO, then you all vote for the decisions made and all of that, and this goes with what you were just saying about how maybe full-on decentralization is not necessarily the best option going forward straight away. And is it quite easy to facilitate that move from or move into full decentralization after something has started?
Well, I do believe you can start with small use cases, right? Like if you have a metaverse and you have plots of land, maybe you can do a vote on what will be built next, right? Like if you make something comprehensible that people can vote upon, I sure do believe that you can do that. But if you're, for example, will open up all the decision making, like the underlying core architecture, and people that have no technological knowledge suddenly need to vote, I think it can become very messy very quickly. So I think it's all about as well guiding people through like the whole concept of what does it actually mean to vote, how does the system work, and where does it make sense to implement it from the beginning, and where does it make sense to keep it transparent but maybe not directly put all the decision making power to everyone.
That makes a lot of sense.
I would just like to add to this.
Yes,
I completely agree on your statement, which is more like on the execution, the management in the metaverse. But I just want to underline again that the infrastructure of the metaverse itself should be completely decentralized. Otherwise, it's not a metaverse. So I think we agree on this point, right? Cool.
I mean, I was researching the other day and I saw that Meta were taking 47.5% of whatever creators upload onto the platform, and like that blew my mind. And if you are building a metaverse, like you want it to be decentralized, and that is what people aim for and hope for when they roam around these worlds. And if you, as the entity which started this world, are charging people 47.5% to upload content onto it, that blows my mind, and I think it just seems so impractical. And so yeah, Tina, going back to you, because I liked how you ended that point, goes on to this. So other than, say, the pure decentralization and the voting, what other challenges come with decentralization in the metaverse?
Well, I think also what Zoe was saying, I think it's very important to make sure that the underlying infrastructure of the metaverse itself is decentralized. And there, I think we still always have challenges. We are still having competing protocols. I think we still need to think about how are we making sure that we are not letting these protocol wars, for example, have again a divided metaverse. I think it's very important to think whether it's interoperability or whether it's actually just making sure that everything like stays open source in the way that protocols can maybe live next to each other, but not in a way that because what I also often see in the blockchain world is that there's a lot of infighting and that a lot of projects are trying to prove to each other why they're better than the other. But I think what we really need to focus upon when we're talking about decentralization is that there is a very big centralized world out there, and they, of course, like when they're big corporations, they have their nose in the same direction. And what I really would like is that we beyond which protocol you're building upon, that we're also saying, okay, how can we move together forward without trying to tell why you're better than your other competitor, because we're in the same boat, actually.
I think that's so important, and like, as I said earlier, education is very important, and collaboration is also very important. And I think with this industry, it's about putting heads together and coming up with the best solution for everyone going forward, instead of, as you said, fighting about the little things and trying to prove who the dominant player is in the market. And I think this leads me on to Alexandra. And so, being at BlockRocket, and as Jantina was just saying about centralized companies, and just out of curiosity, being an investor in that realm, do you ever invest or work with centralized companies, or are you mainly focusing on the kind of decentralized NFT metaverse space at the moment?
So we definitely prefer decentralized cases, but in my opinion, most things now are still very centralized. Even if you look at the Bitcoin network, Ethereum network, it's not actually decentralized like people think. I feel what at the end of the day makes sense is that, like Dan said, how do you deal with the governance? Like, how do you make sure that if you have a community that run the network or run the startup, they do it for the good of the community instead of themselves? And that can be seen clearly again with the team that's behind it.
Yeah, I loved what you said earlier about looking at the team and their morals and whether they're trustworthy as well. And surely a large part of that is the community itself and the community that surrounds the project as going into the metaverse to be surely a strong company, you need a strong community behind you. And so, do you think the community itself around the project is as important as the team within it?
Yeah, I definitely think so, because I think you attract the same person. So if you have a good team, they will definitely attract the same community. And I would say that the NFT community say a lot about itself. Like, under the community, like, there are so many different DAOs or different NFT community out there. And I think the reason why people like to be part of an NFT community is because they see that the goals of the community align themselves. But if you participate in an art NFT organization, then probably you align with that value, or you want to do some charity, whatever. There many kind of use cases out there, even music NFT, for example. So yeah, I would definitely say that the community, like if as an investor, we also want to look at the activities that are happening in there to see if we can be sustainable.
So DAO, with License Rocks being also a platform to trade and collect NFTs as well, would you say that other than the community, what are the most integral elements of making a project successful?
I would say you always have to look at different, because we serve different verticals, you have to look at the vertical and you have to look at the sustainable business model. It doesn't matter whether you add blockchain or NFTs, if there is no value that you're bringing towards your users, then it's, how do you call that? Buzzword bullshit, yeah, that you put together. And I see whenever we have those hype phases, I always see like a lot of companies coming to that space and just adding something towards the existing business, which comes out of the decentralized world, and hoping to get like a lot of money out of that hype. But then on the other side, I see all those builders which are building the whole time and which are building the infrastructure that we need for tomorrow. And you always have to differ from the business side who you're talking with. And you have to see how much they are interested, or your counterparty, how much they are interested in trying to establish a business model that makes sense for you. And if you find a partner like that, and if you see that they are building, then I would go for them, and for others I would run at the moment, because there are a few dodgy people out there. Yeah.
So, I agree, and what you said about platforms just adding something from that world onto it and hoping to reap the royalties from that. Do you kind of think that's what Instagram are now doing by introducing NFTs onto their platform, or do you see that in a more positive light?
I see that in a more positive light, because what they do is they also need to educate a whole new space, and we need that. And if it's only the small startups which are doing that, they are losing time they need for building. So rather give them time for building and come up with a new, nice infrastructure and ideas, because they're always ahead of the big corporates, I would say. Because innovation is taking place from these really passionate people who are building. And it's not a huge community, to be honest. And I admire everyone in that space who's doing that, because they're building our infrastructure that we need for tomorrow.
I couldn't agree more. And the builders and the devs and the architects are the people who I have the most respect for in this industry. And I'm the creative director, and I don't necessarily have that much technical knowledge or know-how, which will lead me on to my next question. So Zoe, talking about the devs and the builders, and how would they, or how do you provide security and preserve privacy in the metaverse? And is that done through the builders, or is that a different aspect?
Yeah, I think you asked this question already in the beginning, right? Where I explained a little bit, but I can just repeat it over. I mean, it's definitely based on our service, right? The computation cloud, where we separate the consensus from the computation, and what we do in the off-chain computation is actually using the trusted execution environments. That's why we call ourselves also privacy-preserving computation cloud. So everything that's executed is executed in secure enclaves. And therewith we can provide the privacy.
So, and I'm going to go back to being on the cloud and Web3 on the whole. So, do you think, it's a bit of a vague question, but does being on the cloud allow for more ease and openness and interoperability? And with that, do you think that it is a fundamental in the next step of Web3?
Yes, definitely. And I mean, getting back to my point that I made before, talking about everything that we are building in Web3 specifically needs to be open source, right? Yes. We already use the cloud, so the cloud is a very important component of any infrastructure or architecture of every project. However, we still use centralized services there, and that's where Fala Network or any other cloud computation or decentralized cloud computation comes in. But cloud, I mean, the cloud itself is not everything in the architecture, right? We also need storage. Preferably a decentralized storage, IPFS, or a trust network, or anything else. So what we need to do in Web3 is really to see, okay, we are building a Web3 application at that, but how is the infrastructure, how is it looking, and not, or trying to go away from decentralized services. I know we are still in the beginning of building, and we are somehow still dependent on these kind of services, and they provide very good services. AWS, is doing great service, and a lot of people use also their servers to mine any other coins and so on. However, to follow the whole Web3 vision, we definitely need to go away to use centralized services, and that's our vision.
Nice, thank you. And so, Alexandra, with Star Protocol, we have Style Exchange as well, and that works in digital fashion. And for me, working in digital fashion, the ultimate goal would be to buy a digital item or digital item of clothing and transport that into a game. And this is my ultimate dream of interoperability. And can you see games opening their inner magic circle to allow people to bring stuff into them, or is that almost an unrealistic expectation?
I think that's very realistic actually, because they need to make revenue and they don't want to miss out on that. And I've already seen big gaming companies in the industry already have NFT use cases and are already more open to talking to blockchain startups, so they can, interact with the ecosystem. So that's definitely potential.
I was doing research the other day, and I mean, 60% of Americans spend $30 a month just on skins, and that blows my mind. And considering that Gen Z are obviously the biggest generation of gamers, but the gaming industry is going to explode. So surely gaming and obviously play to build and play to earn games, they're all parts of this ecosystem that will make it grow so much more. And other than this, other than the gaming side of it, where do you kind of see the most use cases within the metaverse for NFTs? Is that in fashion or somewhere else?
I definitely see, I think what interests in the metaverse is the combination of social media and gaming, right? Like people want to imagine themselves playing the game instead of just some random visual identity. And with that, fashion is very helpful because it helps to insert my personality in there. Like what kind of clothes I wear, how do I interact with it, and it's also more affordable because there's so many big brands that already jump on the bandwagon, like Gucci, right? You can easily buy a digital fashion item for like 20, 30 euro instead of buying for hundreds and thousands of euro. So I definitely see that the interesting use case it would be fashion, and like you can even have length. So anything involved, like you say, what you connect, like the pets, the watches, not just the fashion items alone, even the cars, the weapons, like everything, because we can then live our dream world inside that. Because there are many things that we cannot do in real life. We cannot wear a burning dresses outside, and maybe some of us want to do that. So I think what the Metaverse is doing right now is so creative and so interesting. So many brands have already jumped into that. And it's also interesting because blockchain companies who provide infrastructure now have, a large client base that they can get access to, and that's what we want to look at, the blockchain infrastructure side.
I love that, and I think that ties in with, my own very brief personal definition of the metaverse, which is like a digital world which facilitates imagination and curiosity. I think like if we as people, we spend 11 hours a day on average on digital mediums, and if we can spend say 1 or 2 hours of those days in a world which is like colourful, bubbly, makes you think and makes you interact with humans and other people in a different way, then I think it'll start to make our minds look at things in a different way. And I really like what you said about companies just jumping on it for the sake of it and getting into the space for the sake of it. I think the younger generation specifically are very, very quick to sniff out and notice inauthenticity, and with these big companies like Gucci who are just jumping into the space and throwing loads of money to create products that aren't necessarily that amazing, I think like you really can tell the values of the space. And this is an open question to anyone. Other than authenticity, what would you define as other values for the metaverse going forward?
I can take it. I actually agree with you, because I think starting now something from scratch, of course, like this will be the most genuine approach. And if you are, like you said, a Gucci and you are used actually to this opaque way of doing business, it's actually, it's not genuine if you're now going into Web3. However, I do feel like we need to give everyone the opportunity to join. Also what Dan said before with Instagram. Like if they are willing to change, yeah, please do it. So I think it is actually more depending if they are really doing it or if they're just using it as a trick. And if they're really doing it, then I would embrace it. So for me, it's all just about is this transparency layer there? Do they really want to interact? Because maybe one other thing that I think is very important about this new paradigm in the metaverse is that this co-curation or this like play to earn or to build, it's all about active interaction with the people that are using your product. So from this passive consumer point of view that we have been going through, I think now it's about this genuine interaction that is actually, for me, a very defining thing in this public decentralized infrastructure.
Thank you, and I think that's what a lot of people, a lot of the mass market right now aren't quite aware of, is that in these worlds you can have genuine interactions, and it's not about replacing the physical in any sense whatsoever. It's just about creating a new commodity market, and a new commodity that is completely different and open source and transparent, and that enables the creator, empowers the creator. But I think, does anyone else have anything else that they would like to add onto that, or the values, or where they hope to see the metaverse go?
I think adding to that, I think creativity is very important, because what the metaverse does, or what blockchain does, is create an equal playground for anyone. It doesn't matter if you have more money, if you're Gucci or like luxury brands, or if you're an independent designer, right? Because what matters is who is going to buy the product in the metaverse. And if you are creative, you can sell it at the same price as Gucci or any brand does, as long as you can build the community behind and support the product and want to use your product. So as long as there are activities behind, community feel engaged, they want to buy the product, then it doesn't matter like who sells it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I just would like to add that, I mean, we talked shortly about education, right? For me, the most important thing is that people understand what value the Metaverse actually brings and how it's different to a regular 2D or whatever game, which is again coming back to the infrastructure, the people that they can own, everything, and also shortly to like the Instagram post or the statement. I not completely disagree, but again, here it's very important for me, or it's a very good use case for mainstream, right? Having people, users of Instagram already using NFTs. However, they should understand why it would never be like a real NFT if Instagram not developing their own blockchain or like going decentralized in their infrastructure. So it's very important for people to understand what value the Metaverse brings and what it means to the owner, right? We are the owner of our data, and not get confused by big companies like Meta, Instagram, or anyone else that are just following the hype.
Well said, and I think it's probably time to wrap it up and say thank you to Stefania for the opportunity of having us all on stage, and thank you Zoe, Jantina, Alexandra and Daud for coming and for sharing your wonderful insights, and yeah, thank you everyone for coming as well.
Okay, nice that you're here, back from the coffee break. I would like to start the second panel right now. This panel is on the opportunities in the Metaverse. I would like to introduce Laura Hirvi from the VRBB. VRBB is a public funded association, funded in 2016, and they have around 80 partners and members in the association. The goal of the VRBB is to foster, enable the XR industries here in Berlin and Brandenburg and beyond. And yes, I would like to hand over to Laura. Nice that you're here.
Thank you, Jakob. I have to do this pitch so often, so it's nice that you did the VRBB pitch for me now. I'm promising you it's going to be a very hot panel. We are melting here, I think all of us, but let's make it interactive. And to keep you awake, I tell you that in the end of our conversation, you will have the chance to ask some questions too. So just go ahead and think along with us and prepare for some questions that you can ask in the end of the panel. So in order to save you this one page full of information about all these great people that I have here on the panel, I'm just going to kind of like do a very short introduction, this one sentence to a person, and then we're going to dive into kind of like conversations with each of you. And I told the panelists to ask each other some questions as well, because they're all kind of interlinked as the world is so connected these days. Michel from Yoona.ai, CEO and co-founder of Yoona.ai, and one of the tech stars in 2021, sitting here in the green jacket that I love, that gives me much energy. Frank Hahn, that's an interesting, I didn't write that, I have to say, and I'm not sure if you wrote it. What comes now, I hope you read the memo. It says, self-named Metaverse architect and managing director of Rave space. Interesting. Yes, interesting, yeah. You can correct me afterwards. I mean, to have some, provocation here on the stage. Then Kerstin, co-founder and author of the Art Tech Report and a strategy consultant for the art ecosystem. She advises art market entrepreneurs on digital transformation and business model innovation, and serves as an art tech startup advisor. Yeah. And then finally, brought here on stage by the help of Deutsche Bahn that cancelled his first train. So we are really lucky and happy actually to have you on stage. I was riding with him in the morning, I was like, and is the Klimaanlage, is it working? And it did, it worked, okay. So Simon Graff, XR professional, it's getting better and better. Consultant, speaker, founder of ForReal, and chairman of Next Reality Hamburg. And because you were the last to be mentioned, I start with you, Simon. because we're kind of doing the same thing. So maybe you want to start first by telling what Next Reality Hamburg is all about.
Okay, Next Reality Hamburg is an association, non-profit association, that tries to educate people about the potentials of XR technologies, so virtual, augmented, mixed reality, and even 360 movies. But well, let's keep that aside. And we host many events. We have an annual award show, a conference, and so on. So if you ever happen to be in Hamburg, give me a call, and I'll see you around. I'll give you the whole tour of the XR ecosystem in Hamburg. Yeah.
But you're recently also, I know, because we do lots of collaborations, so I know that you have been recently quite a lot in Berlin as well. Why is that?
Because of my company, ForReal is based in Berlin. Because of my business partners, I still live in Hamburg, and I tend to do so. But apart from that, I enjoy being in Berlin, being here with you guys, girls. Yeah, that's. Do you want to know more about my company?
I want to know more about ForReal, the company, because that's kind of like a good start, I think, for our discussion, starting with you.
So, okay, let me get back a few steps. So, I've been working with XR technologies since 2014. And what I did the whole time was telling people, educating them again about how they and their brands or companies can utilize XR technologies in a meaningful way. And this is what I do with ForReal now too, but I'm writing the buzzword Metaverse, yeah, but underlying the key technologies we're using are pretty much still the same. I enjoy that thoroughly.
You're kind of a sort of a Metaverse consultant as well. I have this nice, like action with the ventilator here. It's kind of like if you get bored, I just turn around and we have this. Yes, this is kind of, I knew that we have this fan here, So let's make a little bit. Kind of but the Metaverse, getting back to that, I mean, like, is Sven still around? He's still around. He's maybe in the Metaverse and he's not noticing that I'm talking to him. Sven, you're not following me. No, just kidding. I just said you were probably in the Metaverse. But I mean, like, I really like the graphics you had this morning. I think Simon, actually, because of Deutsche Bahn, did you see the graphics? No. So you have to kind of send him the graphics. But one of the questions I have for you now, would we be sitting here talking about the Metaverse if it wasn't for our friend Mark Zuckerberg?
Probably not, because this keynote was kind of a tour de force regarding all things Metaverse, from trends to technologies and everything else. Yeah, I mean, you can easily look that up on Google search terms and so on, and so like. Yeah,
that's the graphic was about the Google search and how it peaked, yeah.
So, now everyone's writing that wave, that buzzword wave, so do I. But apart from that, many companies have their own solutions. In my presentations, I always have a virtuality continuum, which ranges from reality to virtuality. One will remember Keynote from 1994, which is quite old. But it's just to make people realize, like, I put companies on that spectrum, like which company has what kind of solution in the field of virtuality or extended reality. And well, pretty much all the big tech companies have their own solutions for, of course, very distinct use cases. So Meta is the loudest company right now, but they're definitely not the only one working on the Metaverse.
For me, it was really interesting. I started in August running the VRBB, and believe me or not, I didn't do anything with technology before that. I was running the Finnish Cultural Institute, but I came here for the networking part. And for me, I mean, like, it started in August, and then when the Metaverse came, all of a sudden everybody understood what I'm doing. Before the 2 months I was trying to explain, virtual reality, and then they were like, oh, Metaverse, and they started. That's also interesting. I think you noticed that too. But people keep on calling me. We want to build a museum in the Metaverse. I think, Frank, I should send them over to you. We get back to that later. But one last question, Simon, for you. You were prepared for it. So I give you I know, but I give you, because that is paving the ground. I'm happy we had all these other discussions, on the Metaverse, but you get your chance to have 2 sentences on the Metaverse.
2 sentences?
Yes.
Can I just point to that?
Yeah, with the commas and everything.
Like what the Metaverse is. That's actually a really mean question, because I'm asking that all my podcast guests as well. And well, since there is no real definition of that, and I'm not quoting Soul Crash or something like the book the term originated from, I'd go with my interpretation and keep it very simple. It's a persistent spatial layer of the internet with lots of different platforms, applications, and solutions, and that's about it.
That is kind of nicely now bridging over to Anna. And Anna, I think, tell us a bit, to start with, about Yoona.ai.
It's Yoona.ai. Yeah, Yoona.ai is a B2B SaaS platform for the fashion industry. We are providing platform from idea to production, or idea to digital fashion, which comes later, enters into Metaverse, social media, and everything what you need, or where you can need it for, where it's needed for. And I have also to go back. We also showed already 2018 our first digital fashion shows, and Metaverse was not known. So. And I started in this time to create a research group how we can implement artificial intelligence into our design and product creation processes. And today we can do the total product creation by artificial intelligence, click on it and have 3D in some seconds. So, but that was a process which already started 2018.
You come from your background is in fashion, right?
Yeah.
So how did you kind of like, how did it happen that you spilled over and merged with technology?
Yeah, I was working as a fashion designer and I found it very inefficient and I could not really calculate what should I design. And then when I wanted to create digital products, I had to create pattern to sew it together. So it was like, do we not have something else to work with? Should we print paper still, and how? So it didn't make any sense to me. And I started to learn programming and created my first program, or my first software was to transform sports data into designs. So that was the first step. And the next step was creating a research group in my university with in total 7 developers to have a look how we can use neural networks to create fashion in a better and easier way, and where we get digital products out of it.
And so we had earlier in the panel this whole discussion about, you know, like Gucci now going over and, you know, designing some products for the Metaverse. What's your take on that? I mean, like, coming from your background, how do you look at that?
Yeah, I mean, we work with a lot of companies, and I was traveling actually in the beginning to all the companies almost in Europe, to a lot of, with a big questionnaire, and only 10% of these companies know how to create digital fashion. So this is the problem. They have now big FOMO to enter into the Metaverse, however this is described, and this is this is the problem. And most of the Metaverse actions of the company are coming from the marketing side. So, but the designers don't know. Only few designers.
So it's kind of like it's always great headlines, right? When you kind of launching something, the Adidas sneaker. I think you, Simon, have actually some fashion board online, and a couple of, you can go back to that later. Yeah. Cool. Kerstin, can you tell us about the latest art tech report that you were involved with, that you published? What's it all about?
Yes, the art and tech report, and that's probably very important, is an independent initiative. It's fully self-financed. It's founded by 4 art market entrepreneurs from Berlin. And we set out to examine last year. We really wanted to understand what the buying motivation and also the collecting motivations for art and NFT collecting is. And also to identify if there actually might be a difference between NFTs and collectibles in particular and art NFTs per se. So that's been the objective behind.
And was there something that surprised you in the report that you published? I mean, like any of the findings you were like, okay, I didn't expect it like that?
You mean in terms of findings or in general? Well, I think that is sitting very nicely in this panel because we could identify that very seriously in advanced collectors as well as collectors being very fond of art NFTs in general but haven't started yet collecting, Both of those collector groups said they are really longing for more curation and quality exhibition making when it comes to art NFTs. And I think we all agree that this somehow contradicts the ideas of decentralization and democratization of Web3. But there is a very strong desire, at least for art NFTs, to be treated like this, being it on a platform where you're really overwhelmed by a huge supply of NFTs, or in terms of how to use them and portray them in the metaverse, but also in the physical world, how to create them and put the work into context, because that's what you do with art, right? So I think, to me personally, that was one of the biggest surprises.
And who's one of the typical, because I think this is also interesting, we were talking with a couple of you, I had some conversations on, like, will the metaverse come, and especially when it comes to the VR classes, like, is that the kind of like future we're gonna move in? And the question of the consumer side, so to say, so now the question to you is like, who is the typical kind of buyer of NFT art? Can you tell that? Is that the person who bought art before, or is there a new group coming actually who is now entering the art market?
Well, that was one of the very important questions we wanted to address, and the answer is there is no answer. It's been an anonymous survey, but we have been addressing NFT collectors, art NFT collectors, traditional art collectors, so there have been a decent mix amongst them. And we could see from the data that we had people saying they've been active in the art NFT collecting field, but definitely intend to collect traditional artworks now, and the other way around, having traditional collectors saying we are really keen on entering this space and starting out, because what we see really counts as art for ourselves. So I wouldn't really say or want to think about there is the art NFT collector per se, but it's about collecting, and in this case it's about art collecting. So I don't really think we should differentiate, because I think it's getting a bigger space, and it should be inviting to all groups of collectors to make it more fun and bigger.
That leads me over now, Frank, to you. Perhaps you can, working, exactly. Can tell a bit more about a Rave space, and because there is a link, why art, because you also have not only a club. I have to say, the first, as we all know, like these meetings with people we had during the lockdown, they were online, and I met Frank also online, and in the middle of the day he asked me, can you close your curtains, we now go to the club, and I was sitting there in my office, and I was like, okay, and I was way too slow. Frank was like, where are you? And I was like trying to get, behind him, and he was like, can you now speed up? And
And I remember the first thing you've done, go to the bar and have a beer, like in real life, so the metaverse.
Waiting for that, yeah.
Okay, I'm Frank. I'm co-founder and CEO of Rave Space. Basically, we are a startup founded January last year, and what we are doing, we build virtual worlds running in the browser. This is a very important information. So virtual 3D worlds running in the browser, they are multiplayer, you have voice chat, everything included. And the reason why we choose this technology is towards, for example, cloud technology. First of all, the running cost is very low, because everything is rendered in the browser, in the phone directly. Towards cloud rendering, where you have a huge cloud in the background, and then everything is rendered in the cloud. It's super expensive, and then the video streams got back, and then you have lags, and you need to download something, you need to install something. And our approach was to build something which is addressable just with a browser by address. You go to the address and you are in. And so that's our main tech stack. We build these virtual worlds, but of course, as we are in the metaverse and we build metaverse solutions, we combine a lot of different technologies that are necessary. We also combine it with blockchain, but not necessarily. The reason why we got into that field was because my two co-founders, they are very sophisticated developers. They all both has been on a HTV, and especially the younger one recently had his master in computer science, especially with this topic, to building these virtual worlds in WebGL, because that's the thing. We build our own engine, which is a layer on WebGL, and that's a pretty and how we make it like accessible and have it running with lots of different people at the same time and very fluent with avatars and all that kind of stuff. This is really cutting edge, and that's our asset. But we started, it's funny, we started with the Rave space. It was basically a virtual techno club, and because we all come from the music background, and we thought, hey, that would be a good case, because it was also during pandemic, and we thought, first of all the artists has been in need, what can we do? They all have been with live streams, and if you see live streams on Facebook, it was always a very passive experience, and people have been watching like a minute and then they were away. So the question was, what can we do where you can, what's more immersive, that's more reality-like, what's more catchy, and also proactively, that you can walk around and also have the same feeling that when you're in the club. And basically that was the idea, and 4 months later we came up with the Rave Space Club, which was the MVP. And it was literally a great success. We have been throwing like over 50 parties with big acts from Mogwai to Thomas Schumacher, like it was every weekend. And also, and this is important because sometimes people say, when the Metaverse will come, it's already there. And the experience I've made in that club, I mean, you mentioned it, it was crazy. I remember the first night was 5 hours in a row, and I thought, oh my god, 5 hours in front of the laptop. But the time was flying, and the reason for that was because I was almost immediately tricked and into that world. I walked to people, starting conversation. They are from everywhere from the world. You could dance, you could watch the DJ, and it was really amazing experience. And that gave us also the idea, basically
it was the entrance, because it was somebody about the question of how you can make actually money, like was there an entrance fee?
Yeah, it was with entrance fee in the beginning, and definitely still the club is still up and running today. It's free of charge at the moment, because everything, if you buy drinks you need to pay them, but there's no entrance fee and everything, and the income will be donated to Ukraine. And the reason why I think still this project is scalable, but as so many new projects came up, we also developed ourselves in a different direction. And this,
because you're also making the link to the art world now.
Let me explain this, please. Because we have been, as we have the club, and also we are in art, and we thought, hey, it would be cool to have a gallery. So we just added to the club outside the yard. You go to the stairs, and then there is a gallery, and then NFT has been shown. And then people came to us and say, hey, this is super dope. Can we display our NFTs and at the same time throw a party? And that was also another great thing, to build communities and stuff like that. And then, like almost directly after the launch of Rave Space, we built the virtual museum for Wolfgang Beltracchi. I don't know if you know him. He's one of the greatest art forger, and they dropped a NFT collection, and we built the virtual museum. And the way we did, I guess, and also the quality that was really making waves, and we had got super feedback from Forbes magazine and blah blah blah, and then this was then we now do really great projects for a lot of great brands, and also one last word to the Musée Decentral, because to catch up the link, and as we have seen that the Musée Decentral, the Beltracchi experience was so powerful, especially to experience art, we thought, hey, we can do that also for our own. And what we built our own project. It's called the Musée Decentral. Musée Decentral. And the great thing about this museum, the idea we have had was we want to connect the traditional art world with the crypto and digital art world, but also we needed to generate some turnover to make our company have the power to do that, because we are self-financed. So what we've done, we built a huge museum in the Metaverse. I'd say it's the largest museum in the Metaverse, and it's up and running. You can enter it right now if you want, with mobile and everything. You needn't have to, but check it out later. And the cool thing about this one is we have 222 frames in the museum, and the frames themselves are an NFT. So you just get a frame as an NFT, and then you can exhibit your NFT collection inside the frame. And this was the crypto part, the NFT art. And then we thought, okay, but we build two additional rooms, and these rooms are created by us or by the community. And in this community, there's space for every kind of art. It needn't have to be NFT. And the idea was to also get a lot of people from the traditional space to get them together in one experience and to meld that and to meet in this kind of virtual world. And as it is multiplayer, people can watch together, experience art, talk to each other, and this kind of stuff.
Cool. There was a question, I think. Did you have one? Yeah.
Yes, there was. So to Kerstin, so you talked about contextualization of art NFTs, and that is one of the biggest challenges with the NFT arts. Like, okay, you buy one, but what do you do with it? And so some people try to print out, some people in virtual museums, and some people something else. So what were your findings about like how to provide some utilization for the art NFTs?
I think everybody understood the question. Yeah? Okay, Kerstin.
Well, thank you for the question, because that was one of the other major questions we actually tried to address, and the data shows that well, the majority of all art NFTs right now are sitting in a wallet, that's for sure. But we have seen a great tendency amongst collectors to look for options and solutions how to display and share the work virtually, like as in NFT exhibitions, using virtual museums, and somehow trying to display and work with the art in the metaverse. But then equally, we have seen a very strong demand amongst collectors to say, how can we get the art NFTs out of the wallet into the physical world? So there have been a lot of questions around how to share, how to live with art NFTs in a physical context, which is quite contradictory to its native context. And again, I don't think there is, I mean, if you have a solution, everyone is looking for hardware so far, and the only advice we can give is it's infinite objects, which is the best frame right now. But I think the lack of hardware to display art NFTs in your life and to start living with art NFTs like we're used to live with traditional art is still to be explored. And we had also people saying that they started to print out the NFTs to frame them in a way they're used to, which I don't think artists want to hear. But I think
especially if it's a video.
Yeah, well, then we have multiple skills. But I think there's a vacuum to find ways how to live with it. And I've seen your museum, and I understand the play on the frames, but me personally, I'm challenging the question if it has to be a frame when it comes to art NFTs or NFT art in general. And I was listening to one major collector the other day, and she said, I'm not interested in frames for my home. I'm actually looking for some OLED technology to be incorporated in my home. So why does it have to be frames just because it is art? So maybe the use case for the metaverse might not be only to put it in a museum, but to find different ways how to add something in addition to the way you've been used to display art in real life. Just a thought.
Yeah, I can answer that, but also I would like to add something. There
a short answer, just so
there are also many physical spaces now developing, showing digital art. And especially also if you want to see guys that do that very well, here in Berlin there is the Go NFT. It's at Neudorfer Platz.
Yeah.
These guys, they made a really smooth transition between physical art and digital art. It's great. It's mostly about street art, but it's really dope. You have screens, but also there are some of the art which you can see in mixed reality. So there are many use cases, and it's not about just have one picture in your wallet. You definitely have to check it out. Go NFT at Neudorfer Platz. This is a good example which will answer your question.
That leads me maybe to a question, Kerstin, to you. I mean, like, I'm not sure if this was part of the study, but when we think about, you know, like basically the future of, let's say, you know, like what kind of like artworks will be part of our cultural history, and there has been the discussion of that, you know, like some collectors now have so much money, so they kind of define what art will be there in 100, 200 years from our period right now. But my question to you is like, what about museums? Do they already buy NFT artworks? Do they understand how to deal with them, how to present them? Do they have a budget for that? Is this, you know, I mean, like this, are they there yet, basically my question?
I'm afraid I understand your question, and I think, well, they do start buying NFTs, but I think it's more of a FOMO because they feel like they need to. I don't really think many institutions are understanding what they are doing. When you are positioned as a museum for contemporary art, I don't think there's any way against or around art NFTs because they're always going to be part of what's happening right now and will somehow become part of the art history canon. If they do know what to do with them, I don't think so, because again, I don't think it's just about displaying. I really think you need to challenge the technology, and this also refers to the way how NFT art will be shown in a physical context.
I know that you were at the Art Basel, and I know that you were in Paris last week, I think it was, or already, exactly. And I did some research because LinkedIn is so transparent, you find all kind of information, so I hope you posted it right on your own page, what I'm saying right now. You were, for the Viva Technology, and if I got it right, you were chosen among the 30 most promising female-led startups, right? That's, yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah. You know, like, as I said before, I worked for the Finnish Institute, and coming from a small country, used to look outside of the national box, and then you're here in Germany, you're sometimes surprised how, you know, like, it's very German-centered, kind of like that we think when we have discourses, my kind of feeling. So when you were in Paris, and when we talk, I think about, right, XR, it's really like what Paris, Canada are doing, also on the national side, is kind of like where we would like to be one day. So what's the reaction there? What's the reaction there when you're pitching your product in Paris on the fair?
I mean, it's a tech fair, so it was quite good.
Yeah.
It's all about, it's like kind of a web summit, but more focused on technology. So we had also investors lounge and everything like that. And of course, all startups which pitched, they were working in technology. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, it's really good that we have these challenges for female founders, because only, you know, maybe startup monitor how the female founder situation is. So it's good that we show that in a tech fair, in a tech exhibition, that we are female founders doing technology.
Yeah, I think I saw this kind of information that, is it startup percentage-wise, women are like somewhere around 10% in Germany or something like that?
Even less, I think.
Yeah. What's your vision for the future of Yoona.ai and thinking about the possibilities that come maybe with the Metaverse? What's where you see yourself in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I think in the fashion industry we live a revolution. Finally, we are changing from physical product to a digital product, what we should have done already 10 years ago. But this industry is so traditional that I mean, they couldn't understand it. They even don't understand what is happening now. So my vision for this industry is, and for Yoona, that we get the whole back end of this industry changed to a digital usage of different technologies. That we maybe, of course, in every company they have 10%, 20%, or the luxury industry you have 50% creativity. That should always be there, but all the other carryovers we should do digitally, not only for using technology, not only for creating digital products, also for our future of our planet, because it's more sustainable.
I'd like to add something. I just recently read a report in the US. They offered 100 kids that they have the opportunity to have a digital sneaker for $100 or a physical one. I think it was a report, but I can't remember. But there was over 80% that decided for the digital one. Isn't that crazy? So that you see where it goes.
I tell you, my son would choose the digital one.
And he's
Probably you as a mother has your part on that.
Yes. No, but I mean, like, even, you know, like, I'm always telling this story, we had it about the music, you know, and about the generations to come. My daughter is 10 years old and she's playing Roblox, and for Christmas she wanted to have everything that was digital. And it was really this kind of discussion that we had, and you know, she's building the roller coasters there, she's earning money, she's also doing art, but obviously, yeah, I mean, like, Simon, you are one, as I kind of like hinted already, that you are actually one who is not a kid buying art, buying fashion. Yeah, definition question. Yeah, but when did you buy, do you remember, when did you buy your first kind of like, fashion, online fashion?
It depends on how you want to define it. If we go back in time, 2004 or something, skins for video games, probably, because none of that is actually really new. Like, I don't know, expressing your individuality via virtual items. It's really hype now, and I'm always laughing a bit when a marketer approaches me like, well, this is a new hot shit. Fortnite has been generating a revenue of over 1 billion via skins even before the pandemic. People are really excited about that, and I was working on a project like going into that virtual fashion direction now, posting stuff on Instagram. It was research in 2020 when I first bought stuff from Fabricant, one of the most renowned virtual fashion labels, and then I bought one thing and another and another. You can all see that on my Instagram page. It's funky, to say the least. And it's really interesting to see what kind of reaction this creates, how people resonate with it, especially younger people. They really celebrate that kind of stuff. And all the people are like, "Why are you fucking crazy? You paid 150 euro for a digital coat." Yes, I did, for research purposes. That's at least.
And you know, I have something to add. I don't get why this industry is not taking over faster, because they have to create only one item, and the margin is so high, and they can sell it 1,000 times. So why do they keep going only physical products with a low margin?
I think this is a lot about the strategy you're running. Like it's all about scalability or artificial, and that's at least in the digital space, and we see that in the NFT space as well. Artificial scarcity. It doesn't, and you know, it's a philosophical question. Does it actually make sense to limit? I mean, the inherent nature of digital goods and media is their productivity. But how much sense? And that's, as I said, it's philosophical. Does it make sense to limit digital assets at all? Because you could easily scale them everywhere. But then, on the other hand, people, it's all about prestige, buying stuff. It's limited. It's an interesting question that we probably can't answer right now.
They're fighting for this one microphone. Go ahead.
I think that's good. I think it should also stay like it is, but we have also in our industry luxury and fast fashion industry. So it should stay like that, but also it should give the possibility, like in the real world, to buy digital fashion for normal people.
Are there any questions from the audience that you have linked to? Back there is a question. Try to be loud.
Yeah, so, I mean, everyone is talking about that we're probably experiencing the biggest crash after the dot-com bubble. So, what do you think, like, how would that impact, especially, like, transfer to the Metaverse? Because, like, crypto is down, the stock market is down, people are saying it's going to last for a longer time, so what's your perspective on that?
Anybody who wants to take this question?
We're all fucked. No, in general, this is of course something that's happening in the market, and it will happen, and it will have implications on, of course, the digital space as well. But overall, the digital world, I mean, it's a lot about the perspective you have. Do you see the digital space as a holistic thing? Like, is Zoom in the same space as Meta is? Somehowish, but also Meta invests into future technologies. Well, their stock has been going down quite frequently, like quite a lot frequently. But still, they are investing. The overall digital bubble isn't doing too shitty right now because, well, as the pandemic has shown us, there's a user need, and it's all about users and relevance. Users create relevance. I don't think, of course will be impacted, but it will not stop the kind of, let's say, digital evolution or revolution we are right now experiencing. How long the uptake of the metaverse or the metaverses and their relevance will take. Even Zuckerberg, that's coming from Snipey, says it's all about 5 to 10 years minimum. So we are at a very, very early stage in early days.
And also considering that the metaverse, at least at the moment, is a collective of several microverses, and I think that's also will be the future. That's it's a transformation from the 2D into 3D, and I assume, and that's what happened recently, there will be standards, and everyone will be developing on those standards, and then the metaverse will build as a whole. And for example, a good example is it looks like Ready Player Me is now the standard for avatars, and the cool thing about this one, you just create your avatar and you can use it in our experiences and in almost all experiences, and I think that's going to be the future, and this is independently on the transformation from the 2D, and the internet will stay, so it's just a further development of this. Probably not for crypto.
There's some other questions. Maybe I take that question.
Yeah, thanks for everyone on the panel. I really enjoyed the diversity of the panel and also the panel before. So this is actually really new because I'm from the finance industry and traditionally the panel looks different there.
For me, like blue shirts?
Yeah, I see my LinkedIn stream is full of blue shirts and white sneakers. So what I want to ask is actually about the metaverse. I think it's a super interesting topic for all of us, and I see you guys have skin in the game and work actually on projects, so this I like really. We also looked at projects and we started to support the art space also, so for example tonight we also host an NFT and art talk on Kudam, but actually for me it would be interesting, what is your opinion when really more corporates will adopt on their own projects? They have innovation labs, they have their own maybe knowledge-bearing people working there, being also fascinated about it. But when do you expect that really more attention shifts to the metaverse on a more broad level, except of Adidas and maybe some other really big brands that are worldwide doing some showcases to maybe use the hype of the technology and everything built up there? So for me, the question would be, when do you see this adoption going on? And yeah, what is your perspective on how corporates can bridge towards the new web as you just described it?
Really good question. Anybody of you wants to take that? Anna?
Yeah, I just read, I don't know if it's right, 2027, the market of metaverse like 430 billion euros. So that seems that 2027 we are already far or more like now. And I think the corporates need time. I really work with them. I mean, they're working manually still. And even if Adidas, and Nike saying they have a metaverse manager, in the back end. Oh yeah.
Metaverse manager, my new title.
No, in the back end they work still. I love this announcement or advertising. They're saying you can print paper still and print your stuff, but you can also come with a horse in the morning to your work. I think they need time, and that what I hope and my vision is that we come to this point that everybody, that is democratized, and that everybody can use metaverse. Also for the corporates, it's a normal thing, and it will come. Like our kids will be 20 and 30, and they will buy immersive. They will be in the metaverse.
I also.
You have the final words basically, because I think you're all so hot as we are, so keep yourself short and make a final round of statements, because it's a great question to end, because it looks into the future.
Yes, and I think a big impact and catalyzing will be when the hardware will touch the market, like better glasses, better performance. If they come like fancy gadgets, remember the time on the first iPhone? Now nobody was used to this kind of usage, and this will be when the new glasses will come out in the future. Then the technology will be consumed on a broader level, and then also the experience will be used more on a broader level. So. And this will happen. It's already happening, and this will be going very, very fast. And I don't know where you are from. I can encourage everybody who's at the moment in the space and thinks about going in there. The Brave will now be the ones that have an advantage for their business and also for their own fun, so to say.
In that context, it's interesting to think that Meta now opened their first physical stores so that people actually can try on the classes. Kerstin, anything you want to say on the future of when the Metaverse will happen, be part of every corporate strategy?
Well, I do agree with you because I think it will take some time. Most probably because corporates can't really mirror in the Metaverse what they've been doing for ages in the physical world, and maybe find some applications to add. And I think that requires time. And also, I think with the Metaverse, it is introducing some kind of consumer-oriented economy. And I really think many corporates require a kind of mind shift before actually entering this space.
Simon, into this. And if there were any questions from there and I didn't see them, then you have to just do the follow-up networking and talking. But as the final, last famous words. I think. Sorry. No. I mean, like. Okay, the beer that is on me. The next beer. Yeah. Okay.
In the end, also connecting to that cooperation question, it's we're in a kind of hand-add problem situation right now. Many companies have a kind of FOMO, they drop shit and transform stuff and bring it into Metaverse platforms. But in the end, I think what happened, and this is like a question I ask my clients and customers as well, is what kind of benefit do you offer? Why should people care? That was one of the last lines I got from your presentation. The sandbox, decentralized, and whatever is being built there is fucking boring. Sorry. The user numbers speak for themselves. Those platforms are basically a wasteland, and it's only interesting for investors, not for content strategists and users. So in the end, the Metaverse without people doesn't matter at all. I think
that was a nice slogan. Yes, that was a nice wordplay. You did it exactly.
So let's end it here. Let's end it here. It's all about in the end.
Metaverse.
The realities are intertwined, virtuality and reality, and without people it doesn't make sense. And if we don't offer any benefits, whether it be communication or products and so on, and listen to what people actually want, all of this will be for nothing. Oh, that's quite.
That was perfect. That was perfect. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. But thanks for being such a great panel. I was a little bit stressed out with all the heat. Thanks for being such a patient and audience. And yeah, we continue from here. Thank you.